Última entrevista del día en el LTE World Summit. Mañana seguiremos con más entrevistas de vídeo, pero hoy terminamos con Chris Pearson, que es de la asociación 4GAmericas, que ustedes ya conocen porque lleva muchos años en el sector, a pesar de que han cambiado de nombre varias veces. Ahora es 4GAmericas. Chris, what was the name? Before it was 4GAmericas, it was 3GAmericas, but before that it was called WC.
No, it was a different organization.
Yes, but what was it?
It was called UWCC.
UWCC. It was a different thing.
Totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the worldwide TDMA association.
Exactly. Okay.
So it was a totally different.
Totally different thing.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to give a background on you, but people know you. But
yeah.
Anyways. So basically, well, Chris, welcome to Telesemana.
Thanks for having me.
I'm making interviews very messy today, so I'm going to excuse, I'm going to ask excuses for my audience and for you.
Sure.
So well, welcome. It's been a long time since we haven't talked.
Yeah.
Since we haven't done an interview, but you have a lot of news.
Yes.
Or at least you have one, which is important, which is a new paper that you have released recently.
Yes.
Which comes very handy for this topic that we're going to are discussing here, which is LTE.
Yes.
And your paper says networks are congested.
Yes.
So give us, a briefing on what's happening with that paper.
Sure. So 4GAmericas published a white paper, and it's available on our website at www.4gamericas.org.
I'll try to put it here with a ban.
Yes.
The URL.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
And so, and what that paper is, it's about the fact that number one is networks are congested, and the best way that governments can help solve the issue of congested networks is to bring more spectrum to market.
I knew it.
And it can be, and I'm not just talking about the United States, but countries throughout the Americas. It's an issue that's for North, Central, and South America that governments need to bring out more spectrum. The more spectrum that's brought out for the industry, the better it is for customers and economies throughout the region. But we also know that that's a challenge, that it's hard to get new spectrum out to the market at times. And so this paper actually addresses some of the other areas that can kind of help alleviate some of the spectrum crunch that's going on. Three of the areas that we talk about are device operating systems, signaling traffic.
Yeah. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, a nightmare. We also discussed really the application developers and finally the end user behavior. So we kind of dive into those areas as kind of areas that are some of the toolkits that we as an industry need to look at to kind of help alleviate this spectrum crisis that's going on, even though again spectrum is the number one way to get us out.
Yeah. True. But the fact is that spectrum is also the most complicated, because usually we know it's scarce, and we know that if we want to have access to other bands, that means probably displacing somebody else somewhere else. So how are we,
How are we going to deal with that?
Yeah, how?
Well, I think that's a common thought, that okay, you have to displace somebody, and there are certain countries where that's true, where you have incumbents that have been there. They might not be utilizing that spectrum, number one, for what it was thought it was going to be used for, or number two, when the government issued it to kind of serve society, they thought it was going to be a much bigger society that would be using that service, like MMDS or LMDS or any type of these point-to-point services that got massive amounts of spectrum and really don't have massive amounts of customers. But in most countries in Latin America and even in other countries in North America, there are opportunities to bring more spectrum to market that you are not pushing out. People that are already in them. An example is 1721. Is the extended band for 1721, or we call it Advanced Wireless Service Band.
Yes.
There are opportunities throughout Latin America to bring that to market. In the U.S., there is an opportunity to use that spectrum as well. And we already are for what's called Advanced Wireless Services 1 spectrum. But there's an extension band that we can also work with our government to kind of clear. Again, there are users in there, but to bring it out to market. So there are some opportunities that are out there for the governments to bring more spectrum to market. Okay,
aren't you feel? I mean, this is more a philosophical question, but aren't you fearful that if we give operators more spectrum, first challenge, they need to get money to invest on infrastructure. As you said, we cannot provide spectrum to the operators and then have that spectrum sitting down on a closet unused. First challenge would be, okay, I have more spectrum, that means I have more obligations to invest on that spectrum, one. And second, there seems to be such hunger, but seems why push on 2 days later, I'm going to be congested again.
Well, there's great opportunity in the fact that, yeah, when we build it, they use it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
that's great because it's serving society. I mean, and it has the ability to change society.
We're going to see the same issue then.
Well,
no?
Yes. Well, think about what happens. When you don't have spectrum in the marketplace, you start losing that ability to innovate and bring more services to market. How do you get into teleeducation or healthcare or M2M or some of these, or even video education or video medicine? All these areas that need bandwidth to be able to serve society. But I think if you bring new spectrum to market, you bring investment, you bring economic development, you bring jobs. If you look at, 4GAmericas tracks LTE worldwide, and LTE worldwide is at 80 operators that have commercial deployments of LTE. If you look at almost every single one that's invested the hundreds of millions, or in the United States, for instance, it was billions and billions, the reason they went into that new investment in LTE was because they got spectrum that they either won at auction or they bid for at auction. So we're not looking at an industry that looks to sit on spectrum. We have an industry that looks to invest in spectrum.
Okay.
And do the operators have money to invest? Yes. They need to get the spectrum first, and then you'll see more and more LTE deployments throughout the region.
Okay. Well, I guess my point to you, and to put you on the spot, and to make it a challenge for you this interview. Otherwise, it's very easy.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned 4 factors that can be touched to make sure that we can address the congestion issue.
Help. Yeah.
And it seems to me like the first one, which is the obvious one, which would be more spectrum, and
it's the most efficient way to address it. Yeah.
I'm going to say something also obvious. We cannot ask for more spectrum forever. We will reach a point where there will be no more spectrum. So shouldn't we also get ahead of ourselves and say, okay, we are going to be asking for more spectrum, number one. That's key priority because we know we still have more spectrum.
Yep.
But it's like with oil, we assume that oil is going to end, it isn't going to be forever, so we need to find alternatives already. The other 3 factors you mentioned also be given more weight in the discussion?
I think they are starting to have more weight in the discussion. But I think, if you get down to like what's basically physics is physics, as a radio engineer would say, you can only get so much out of the spectrum you have. And so when you start looking at the factors that are written in this white paper, and we are putting more emphasis because 4GAmericas just put out a white paper on it to really bring it to the forefront of the industry to say, read this white paper. Operators and vendors, let's keep looking at our toolkit. Let's start working with those application developers. Here's an example. Application developer, they in the past and even today, they develop an application. They don't care.
They don't care. Yeah.
They develop it.
But
for
they are
the
untrained, I guess.
Yes, but that's what this paper brings out. It says, hey, operators, vendors, let's start educating the application developers to care about what their application does as far as how many signals it's sending, in a millisecond, what it does for as far as consumption of data in the network. Because at some point, and this gets down to our end user behavior,
which we also need to address.
An end user rate is going to start to care about that application. Maybe not on the signaling, because the signaling doesn't add up to a whole lot of, as far as But okay, say that application, it could be run and it can only it could be an application that uses just a little bit of bandwidth. Okay, and you have a data plan that you're paying on a tiered basis. Well, what happens if that application can be developed either to have a high amount of data, or medium amount of data, or low amount of data to be utilized? So if it's an easy application that they can develop it that way, that application developer needs to be educated about it. So those are all the kind of reasons of bringing this white paper to the forefront of the industry, to everyone to understand these. And so it's application developers, it's device manufacturers, it's the infrastructure that can be some of the infrastructure, the standards that go into the infrastructure can help. There's a lot of areas for opportunity, but again,
and even pricing models for the users. I mean,
as
you were saying, educating the user.
Right.
The pricing schemes need to change, because obviously we've done it the other way around. We said to the users, okay, here's an unlimited data plan. I know it's not limited because unlimited because I have a scarcity. But anyways, because you're just a few users, I'm going to give you unlimited. Now I cannot give you unlimited, so we're just going backwards now.
Yeah.
So we need to,
4G antitrust, we don't talk about it, pricing or anything like that in the white paper.
No, but what I'm saying is that we need to educate the user as well, and I guess pricing probably is the best way to do it, because you're not going to go and say, listen, I'm going to give you unlimited, but be careful. And the user goes,
and you've seen that operators around the world have all kinds of different pricing plans, and so you can go through those and see that operators around the world are starting to recognize the scarcity of basically bandwidth in their networks, and therefore they're pricing it differently.